Hey everybody, welcome to Harmon Garage. I'm Aaron. Today we are going to get back on the 81 Chevy C30. We're going to replace the intake because it needs to be resealed, and since we're going to take it off, I'm going to go ahead and put a better one on. We're going to put a different carburetor on it. We're going to reseal valve cover gaskets, do a full tune-up on it, change the fluids, new thermostat, all that stuff. Just make it a little bit more mechanically sound so that when they start driving it, they don't have any problems. So I'm gonna get in here and start tearing everything apart, and I'll bring y'all along for the ride. All right, so we're getting started on this, making repairs on this 81 C30. I already went ahead and drained the coolant out of it because I have to pull the intake, and I don't want to get any more oil done in the motor than we have to. So the first thing I'm going to do is take off the carburetor, and then I'll take off the upper radiator hose, pull off some other stuff that's going to be in the way. I'll take off the alternator bracket, I'll pull the distributor, pull the valve covers off because we need to reseal them too. Then we'll pull that intake, and then we'll go on from there. The first thing to come off is going to be the carburetor. It's one of these old Quadrajets. It's just got 4 bolts, 2 on top in the front and 2 down below in the back. But if I was thinking before I unbolt the carburetor, I'm going to take the fuel line off, because then the carburetor is being held while I break it loose, which makes it a lot easier. So we'll pull the fuel line, then we'll pull the carburetor. There's going to be a lot of stuff that we're going to take off that's not going to go back on with the new intake and carburetor. For instance, this has a heat riser choke on it. We're not going to be using that again. We will, the new carburetor, the other carburetor I'm putting on here has an electric choke, so that'll be different. It's got some kind of vacuum regulated spark control or something on here. I'm going to do away with all that too. It don't need it. So we'll be getting rid of that stuff. We'll clean it up a lot in here, make it look better. The only reason I'm doing all this is because stuff's leaking. If it wasn't leaking, I'd probably just leave it. But since it's leaking, we're going to go ahead and replace the carburetor. Well, I'd replace the carburetor anyway. This carburetor's junk. So, but I probably wouldn't go to the extent of replacing the intake and stuff. But since I'm going to have everything, I have to take the intake off because it's pushed the seals out and it's leaking. I'm going to go ahead and put an aluminum better one on. Alright, I got the carburetor off. I say it's junk, and it kind of is, but for some reason I always save them. So I'll set this off to the side. Never know, one day I might be in a pinch, and I know that carburetor will run because I've had this running on it. So that, and I'm kind of a Chevy truck parts hoarder. So next thing I'm going to do is pull this throttle mounting bracket off to get it out of the way. I'm going to take my alternator bracket loose from the intake. Maybe. Oh, maybe. Alright, there we go. Get that off. I'm not reusing a lot of this stuff. I got everything to do a tune-up. So, not being careful with a lot of it, because most of it's going to go in the garbage. So since I'm disconnecting grounds and battery cables and stuff, I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the battery because I'm moving the alternator and all that. It's always a good idea to do it anyways. Eight millimeter. So I don't think I'm gonna have to take this alternator all the way off. I think I can just take the bracket loose and just lay it over enough that I can get the intake and the valve cover off. Alright, we'll zap these valve covers off real quick. Judging by the shaft of the distributor, I'm not sure. I want to see what this valve train looks like, but we'll check it out. I did notice a spot or two on the floor where it's leaking some power steering fluid, so I'm going to have to take a look at that and see where that's coming from, because this is Hydro Boost, so if you run out of power steering fluid, you run out of brakes too. So check that out, see where that's coming from, make sure we get that fixed up for them too. She's a little dirty, but I've seen worse. Got the valve covers off. It's a little bit of crud in there, but not much. Now it's time to pull this intake. Alright, got all our bolts out, got all our tabs off. I'm going to have a lot of cleaning to do because there's so much dirt, mud dauber nests and everything up in here. No matter what I do, it's going to make a mess. So I'll just pull out the shop vac after I get it off and clean all that up later. Well, I think I got all my bolts out. Now I'm going to teach you guys how to make chocolate milk in your oil pan. If I can lift this thing. Might have to take that heat riser off, it might be hooked in there. Well, maybe we'll try to get it off without taking that off. That bolt's rounded off and I'm pretty sure I can get it out. There we go. Alright, got a little bit of dirt in there, not too bad. and no coolant, which I'm surprised. So guess I'll have to teach y'all how to make chocolate milk some other time. So these are the rubber seals that they give you in a gasket set to go on the front and back of the intake. And I don't know how well y'all can see this, but this is covered in silicone. Never put silicone on rubber. It causes leaks, it doesn't stop leaks. And this one's all pushed out. It's leaking. That's the whole reason I tore this down as far as I did, was to replace these, to stop the oil leaks from the intake. So here's the back one. It's all brittle and busted in multiple pieces and silicone back together. It's not good. That's exactly why this was leaking. There's so much silicone on the back of this block, it's not even funny. Alright, well, that's it for the teardown of this. I'm going to go ahead and clean up parts. Get the vacuum over here, clean all this up. Scrape all my gasket surfaces and stuff the best I can. And then we'll show you the new goodies we're about to throw on here. Okay, I got this all torn down. Got everything cleaned up. Getting ready to go ahead and put the new intake on. So I'm going to do a little unboxing here. Here's the new intake. It's Edelbrock Performer. So it's a pretty nice intake, dual plane. It should help this truck out a little bit. So we're gonna go ahead and get the stuff switched over that we gotta get switched over. And then I'll fire the other camera up and we'll get started putting it on. So it's been a while since I did this, but forgot to turn my mic on my camera. What I'm explaining here is these are the rubber seals they give you to go at the front and the back of the intake. And they're junk, so you just throw them away. So I'm going to take silicone. You can use black, gray, whatever you want. And I'm going to put it at the front and the back of the intake. And then I'm going to put it around the water ports as well. And you can see here on the intake gaskets it says this side up. You can't really see it, but so you want to pay attention when you're putting them on. Usually they're marked one way or another. So just make sure you get them on the right way. And then after I get done putting the silicone on the bridges at the front and the back of the block, I always let it sit for a little, 5 minutes or so, let it set up a little bit before you put the intake on. It helps it so it doesn't push it out as much when you go to tighten the intake down. Alright, I got a little bit of work done here. I got the distributor all set in. I went ahead and set the carburetor on it just to plug the hole in the intake. And I put new thermostat housing on. Changed out all the spark plugs. Just kind of been tinkering around a little bit. I wanted to kind of seal the intake up and waiting on some parts to dry that I cleaned up and painted. I got my alternator bracket, my throttle bracket, my valve covers. I cleaned them all up, painted them. Not that the motor's going to look all clean and pretty or anything, but I had them all off and I don't like to put greasy, dirty parts back on. So next thing I wanted to piece of information I have that I wanted to give you guys. When you do valve cover gaskets on these small block Chevys, there's two different thicknesses of cork. I'm not a big fan of the rubber gaskets. I haven't had a lot of luck with them sealing up, so I always use the cork. And with the cork, there's two different thicknesses. There's one that's about half the thickness of this, and then there's these. I always use the thicker ones, and I take a really, really thin bead of silicone, run it around the valve cover, and then I'll take and stick the valve cover gasket to it, and I'll set the valve covers down like they go on the floor, and let them sit there, depending on the temperature and whatnot, overnight or a couple hours, get them to seal up. And or let the silicone set up. So I got these cleaned up and painted and everything on Friday night, and I didn't work over the weekend, so I put the silicone on there Friday before I left, and then let them sit all weekend and cure. So we're gonna go ahead and throw those on, throw the alternator bracket on, put some new belts on it, hook up spark plug wires. We'll be about ready to start this thing back up. So I'm gonna go ahead and knock that little bit of stuff out, then we'll do another startup video. Okay, I got the C30 all put back together and got it fired up. Took a couple tries. I dropped the distributor 180 out the first time, so I had to go back and switch it around, but after I got it back, it fired right up. Letting it heat up now, burn all the excess oil that was leaking before off, and get up to operating temperature so I can fine tune the timing. Should be pretty close now, but I'll have to tune it up just a little bit and then hook the vacuum line up to the advance and stuff like that. So just sitting here letting it run for a little bit so it can build some heat, and watching, make sure it's full of coolant and stuff like that. So we'll get back to you in a few minutes. All right, so a little bit of a shop update. The 81 C30, I got it pretty close to done engine wise. I still have to clean up the routing of the spark plug wires and put a new, or reroute the wire for the electric choke. But other than that, new belts, hoses, fuel lines, carburetor intake, valve cover gaskets. Got it all cleaned up, and runs great. Got it timed, everything's good. A little update on long step. I've got proportioning valve in, all the new brake lines are done, front suspension completely done, both sides. Working on the gas tank right now. That's a Holly Sniper fuel tank, comes with everything, you just have to make it. And I got the rear brakes done, parking brake cables in, new braided line hooked up to my brake line. So the only brake lines I have left to do are the ones that run from the proportioning valve up to the master cylinder, and I can't do that until I get the cab and the master cylinder. So suspension and brakes on long steps pretty much done. Pretty excited about that. So I think we're gonna wrap this video up here. If you get a chance, hit that subscribe button. And if you don't get a chance, try to remember, hit the subscribe button for me. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers by the 1st of January. That's just a goal I have set for myself. Go ahead, leave me a comment. Tell me if you like it, tell me if you don't like it. Share it, hit the like button, ring the bell, you know, all the good stuff. So y'all have a good one, and we'll see you next time.